At a busy New York cafe, a waitress humiliates a black woman over a simple cake order, sparking a shocking confrontation. But when the woman's husband arrives, the entire cafe is left in stunned silence. Watch until the end to see how justice prevails. And let us know what time you're tuning in today. The air inside Lavender Grove Cafe buzzed with energy as customers enjoyed their morning treats. The cafe, famous for its custom cakes and artisanal desserts, boasted an upscale yet cozy ambience. Exposed brick walls were lined with shelves of decorative pastries, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of vanilla and buttercream. Clara Thompson entered quietly, her steps measured as she took in the familiar atmosphere. Her tailored navy coat and delicate pearl necklace reflected her timeless elegance. Today was a special day, her daughter's birthday, and Clara had ordered a custom cake to make the occasion even more memorable. She smiled softly, imagining the joy on her daughter's face when she saw the vibrant floral design Clara had carefully chosen. Approaching the counter, Clara waited patiently as the line moved forward. Her demeanor was calm and polite, even as the cafe bustled with chatter and the clinking of plates. When her turn came, she handed over her receipt and watched as the box was retrieved from behind the counter. Opening the lid, her smile faltered. The cake inside was not the one she'd ordered. The floral design was missing, replaced by dull, haphazard decorations, and her daughter's name was misspelled. Clara hesitated for a moment, debating whether to speak up, but she knew she couldn't let this slide. Taking a steady breath, she addressed the waitress at the counter. "Excuse me," Clara began, her voice gentle but clear. "I think there's been a mistake with my order. This isn't the design I requested." The waitress, Lisa Daniels, a young woman with a short temper and little patience, barely glanced at the cake before responding. "It's fine. It's just a cake. Does it really matter?" Clara blinked, taken aback by the dismissive tone. "I'm sorry, but this was for my daughter's birthday. I specifically requested a different design." Lisa rolled her eyes, sighing audibly. "Look, it's busy today. Mistakes happen. Maybe next time. Don't be so picky." The room grew quieter as nearby customers began to notice the tension. Clara maintained her composure, though her voice took on a firmer edge. "I understand mistakes happen, but I paid for this to be done correctly. I'd like it fixed. Please." Lisa's frustration boiled over. "Oh, so now I'm supposed to drop everything because you're unhappy? Some people don't know how to be grateful," she muttered, loud enough for others to hear. Clara's cheeks flushed, not with embarrassment, but with quiet resolve. "This isn't about gratitude. It's about respect," she said evenly. But Lisa, fed up, grabbed the cake box and slammed it onto the counter. "Here's your respect," she shouted, flipping the box open and shoving the cake toward Clara. A chunk of icing smeared onto Clara's coat as gasps echoed through the cafe. Clara stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly as she processed what had just happened. Then the cafe door opened, and everything changed. The soft chime of the cafe doorbell broke the silence. A tall man in a sharp black overcoat stepped in. Henry Thompson, Clara's husband, exuded authority and sophistication. His piercing gaze swept the room, landing on his wife and the cake smeared on her coat. Clara turned to him, her voice steady despite the quiver in her hands. "Henry, there was a misunderstanding." Henry's eyes narrowed, taking in the scene, the shocked stares of the customers, the smirk on Lisa's face, and the ruined cake. His voice was calm, yet it carried a weight that silenced the room. "A misunderstanding? I'd like to hear exactly what happened." Before Clara could respond, a customer seated nearby interjected. "She threw the cake at her," the woman said, her voice filled with indignation. "It was completely uncalled for." Henry turned his attention to Lisa, his tone still calm but now laced with authority. "Is that true?" Lisa hesitated, her earlier bravado fading under his gaze. "It wasn't like that," she stammered. "She was being demanding, and I just—" Henry raised a hand, cutting her off. "Enough. You don't humiliate someone for asking for what they paid for. Is this how this cafe treats its customers?" Lisa opened her mouth to protest, but the room was no longer on her side. Henry wasn't finished. Henry's calm gaze swept over the room before locking on Lisa, who now stood frozen behind the counter. The murmurs of the customers quieted, all eyes fixed on the tall, composed man. His presence radiated authority, and even those who didn't recognize him could tell he was someone who commanded respect. "Let me introduce myself," Henry began, his voice firm but level. "I'm Henry Thompson. I'm a civil rights attorney who has spent decades fighting for justice and equality. My wife, the woman you just humiliated, deserves far better than the treatment you gave her." Lisa's face turned a deep shade of red as the weight of his words sank in. The cafe manager, who had just emerged from the back, stopped mid-step, his jaw slack as he realized the gravity of the situation. Henry continued, his voice rising slightly to ensure the room heard every word. "You think throwing a cake at a customer is acceptable? You think making assumptions about someone based on your impatience or prejudice is the kind of behavior this cafe should tolerate?" He gestured toward Clara, who stood silently beside him, her poise unshaken despite the cake smudged on her coat. "This woman has shown more grace and dignity in the face of your rudeness than you deserved. And let me make one thing clear. Your actions don't just reflect poorly on you, they reflect poorly on this establishment as a whole." The whispers among the customers grew louder. One man at a nearby table leaned over to another and said, "That's Henry Thompson. I've seen him on TV. He's won huge cases." Lisa attempted to stammer out a defense, her voice shaky. "I didn't mean to. It wasn't." Henry raised a hand, silencing her. "What you meant doesn't matter. What matters is how you acted. Respect isn't optional. It's not something you offer only when it's convenient for you, or when you think someone deserves it. It's the bare minimum of decency." The cafe manager finally stepped forward, his face pale. "Mr. Thompson, I deeply apologize. This behavior is absolutely unacceptable. Lisa, I need to speak with you in private immediately." Henry glanced at the manager, his tone still steady. "Apologies are a start, but this isn't about me or my wife. It's about the standards you set for your employees and the environment you create here. I expect to see meaningful changes, not just hollow words." The manager quickly escorted Lisa to the back, leaving the cafe in a hushed silence. All eyes were still on Henry and Clara, and the tension in the air was palpable. Customers began whispering among themselves, some murmuring words of support, while others shook their heads in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. Henry turned to Clara, gently brushing a stray piece of icing from her coat. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern. Clara nodded, her composure still intact despite the humiliation she had endured. "I'm fine, Henry." But moments like this make you wonder how often people get away with this kind of behavior when no one speaks up. The manager returned, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," he began, his voice shaky, "on behalf of our staff, I want to extend my sincerest apologies. This behavior does not represent the values of our cafe, and we'll be taking immediate steps to ensure it never happens again." Lisa has been relieved of her duties, effective immediately. Henry studied the man for a moment before speaking. "I hope you understand this isn't just about an apology. It's about creating an environment where respect is the standard, not the exception. If you truly want to make this right, start by training your staff to treat every customer with dignity, regardless of who they are or what they look like." The manager nodded vigorously. "You have my word, Mr. Thompson. We'll do better." Clara smiled faintly, her voice warm but firm. "I hope you will, because this wasn't just a bad day for one customer. It was an opportunity for growth. Don't waste it." A woman sitting near the counter suddenly stood up and began clapping. One by one, other customers joined in, their applause filling the cafe. Clara and Henry exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting mutual understanding and pride. As the couple turned to leave, a young barista stepped forward with a small, fresh cupcake. Her hands trembled slightly as she extended it to Clara. "Mrs. Thompson, I made this just now. I hope it helps make up for what happened. Happy birthday to your daughter." Clara accepted the cupcake with a warm smile. "Thank you. That's very kind of you." As they exited the cafe, a customer called out, Mr. Thompson, thank you for standing up. People need to see moments like this. The applause resumed briefly, a final note of solidarity and support. As Clara and Henry walked down the street, their heads held high. Henry glanced at Clara. What he said next would be a reminder that moments like these were never just about one person. As Clara and Henry walked down the bustling New York street, the cupcake in Clara's hand felt like a small yet meaningful gesture, a reminder that kindness still existed, even in moments of adversity. Henry glanced at her, his expression softening. You handled that with grace. As always, he said. It's moments like this that remind me why we keep pushing for change. Clara smiled, a quiet determination in her eyes. It's not just about us, Henry. It's about making sure the next person who walks in there doesn't have to fight for basic respect. Behind them, the sound of the cafe door closing marked the end of the encounter. But the memory of it lingered, not just for Clara and Henry, but for everyone who had witnessed it. The couple's dignity and resolve had left an imprint, a ripple that would hopefully inspire others to stand up for what was right. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment like this? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales of resilience, justice, and change.